Tony Hawk's American Wasteland came out in October 2005, so it's 20 years old now. 2 years ago, I reviewed Underground 1 for its 20th anniversary. Last year I did the same for Underground 2. So now, it's American Wasteland's turn. And this is the end of me reviewing the Tony Hawk games until a new one comes out that I feel is worth talking about. I will not be reviewing Project 8 next year for its 20th anniversary, and the same goes for Proving Ground the year after. I'm done for now. Why? Because I don't really have much of a history with the subsequent games at all, so I have no passion for talking about them for their anniversaries. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I've held a grudge against American Wasteland for 2 decades now. Playing it for the first time is still one of the most disappointing experiences I've ever had with not just a game, but any form of entertainment. But even when I got past my initial disappointment, the game still felt hollow. I replayed it on and off for about 2 years, and then I just stopped. I kinda gave up on the whole franchise after that. My last 2 Tony Hawk reviews were celebrations of those old games. I mean, that's evident in my Thug 1 review's epic length. But my main goal with this video was not to celebrate it, but to see if my 20-year-long grudge was warranted. Was it really that sucky, or did my initial disappointment color my experience? Well, it's time I find out. Now, if you're a fan of American Wasteland, I'm not trying to take that away from you. I'm glad you enjoy it. I don't want you to have shared my pain. But I can't share your joy, so forgive my bitterness. Remember, this is just one guy's opinion. I can't take your love away from you, and I wouldn't even if I could. So this will be split up into multiple chapters. This intro, a big ass rant about my first time playing Wasteland, then a review of the game itself, and then my conclusion. After that, I'll end this video with a chapter explaining why this game caused me to abandon the franchise, and why I feel it led to the death of the Neversoft Tony Hawk games. Here we go. So, in order to explain why my first time playing Wasteland was so crushing, I need to also explain what it was like to be a gamer back then, during the 6th generation of consoles. During the PlayStation 2, Xbox and GameCube era, open-world free-roaming games were a very new concept. It was such a novelty actually feeling free when playing a game. So, certain linear games would ride this wave by transitioning into an open world with their next installment. Linear game, open world. Linear game, open world. Linear game, open world. Linear game, open world. It was unprecedented, very exciting. So as a result of this novel time I was living in, teenage me had a little fantasy. I was a relatively new fan of the Tony Hawk games. Thug 1 made me an avid fan, Thug 2 was great but it didn't do much new, so I wanted something new and mind-blowing. I wanted the Tony Hawk franchise to ride this wave and transition into an open world. Well, not long later, I heard that my fantasy was coming true. Tony Hawk's American Wasteland would be coming out in October 2005, around my 14th birthday. And it would be an open world game where you get to roam around a fictionalized version of Los Angeles. One big level. My dream was coming true. Holy crap. I then spent most of 2005 rewatching the online interviews religiously.
We've got this huge city that you're able to skate all the way through and never have to see a load screen.
First skating game with no loading screens.
All one big continuous experience. Never see a loading screen.
LA has one giant level. There's no load time between different areas.
There's no wait times loading different areas.
The idea of skating around a big open world sounded too jiggy. And the BMXs sounded like they complement that experience. Why? Because that's how it was in GTA San Andreas, which was still quite new at the time. One of the best ways to traverse that big open world was via bicycles, so I imagined it would be the same in Wasteland, but with an awesome Tony Hawk trick system. How could I not be excited for that? Speaking of San Andreas, That game gave you the ability to purchase haircuts at barbershops, clothes at clothing stores, and tattoos at tattoo parlors. I know that's standard nowadays, but at the time, it was so immersive. So other open world games, like True Crime New York City, would emulate those features. American Wasteland would be the next to do so. Barbershops, clothing stores, and tattoo parlors. Yes, we had always been able to customize our skater, but doing it this way just added an extra layer of realism. It demonstrated that Neversoft were truly inspired by other free-roaming games. I was juiced. So just after my 14th birthday, I got my birthday money and power walked to the shops. I grabbed that case and read the back of it.
The first free-roaming Tony Hawk game. Skate LA is one massive streaming world.
Oh, give me this game now. I rushed home, popped the disc in, and braced myself for an unforgettable experience. Well, it was, just not in the way I had hoped. I had no clue that 20 years later, I'd be a YouTuber making a video like this. So you start out in Hollywood, and I was instantly confused. Hollywood was just another Tony Hawk level. It was boxed in, surrounded by walls. But I thought, hey, this is the beginning of the game. Maybe this is just the training area. Once I beat some goals, the level will open up to an even bigger world, right? But I couldn't see how it could. Literally. It's not like the older levels where you couldn't escape the level, but you could at least see how the cars could get in here. The roads here just go in circles or lead to dead ends. How did the cars get in here? How can they leave? There's no way of driving in or out of here. It made no diegetic sense. So, unless the Flash came along and quickly demolished walls and laid down roadwork real quick, I had no clue how this boxed-in level could open up to a bigger world. This was odd. So I kept playing. I beat some more missions and then opened up this long tunnel that led to Beverly Hills. Okay, on the other side is going to be this huge level, right? Beverly Hills is another condensed area. Maybe I'm still in the training stage? So I kept playing, and then unlocked another tunnel that took me to downtown. Another condensed area. And the roads were the same. How the hell could these streets open up to a bigger world? How can these cars get in or out of here? What the hell is going on? This isn't an open city. It's a series of small to medium-sized levels. Neversoft lied to us. How did they think they could get away with this? Then it hit me. I can still remember the process very clearly. It literally played out exactly how you're watching it right now. Just imagine that this is me at 14. I sat there, holding the controller with a confused expression. And my eyes slowly widened as I remembered all of the words said in the marketing that I had spent all year absorbing.
And never have to see a load screen.
First skating game with no loading screens.
There's no load time between different areas.
There's no wait times loading different areas.
All one big continuous experience. Never see a loading screen. 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 Never see a loading screen.
It turned out, Neversoft and all of the marketing did not lie to us. This is the game they advertised. When playing the story mode, there are no loading screens when traveling around this version of LA. They were telling the truth. But it was a truthful lie. They made it sound like you get to explore a big open world. But no, Wasteland's version of LA is just a series of boxed-in levels connected via tunnels and corridors that you have to travel through. They're just loading tunnels. As you travel through them, the next level loads in, and the game purposely slows you down to give the next level time to load. It's not immersive, and it doesn't give me a sense of freedom at all. American Wasteland is not an open world game, and as solid as they are, The BMXs are nothing like the BMXs in GTA San Andreas. They're not a cool way of exploring a big, new version of LA. And yes, there are some features here inspired by real open world games, like this compass to help you find missions and side quests. And you can get haircuts, clothes and tattoos. But no, this is not a true open world game. My fantasy had not come true. I was crushed. And it wasn't my fault. When I played real open world games, I was given open worlds to explore. Cities. Not little neighborhoods connected via loading tunnels. So how could I expect anything else here? Especially when Neversoft never mentioned tunnels. And do you think it was an accident that they never mentioned them? Of course not. They knew what they were doing. They knew that loading tunnels were not a great selling point, so they never mentioned them. And I'm assuming they even told the Hawkman himself to hide the truth too. Turds.
It's all one big level.
And to Neversoft, I have to ask a serious question. If you knew that loading tunnels were too lame to be mentioned in the marketing, then why even make them the game's most prominent feature? Try something else. I mean, in Freescape mode, you completely removed the loading tunnels. So if Freescape mode abandoned the game's biggest selling point, doesn't that prove just how disposable that selling point is? Absolutely. And adding insult to injury, in each prior Tony Hawk game, the levels were always varied because they were set in different parts of the world. But here, you're always stuck in Los Angeles, so most of the levels feel way too samey. Now, if this was a true open world, that would make sense, and it would be fine because you'd have the benefit of feeling free. But with this tunnel gimmick, there's no freedom to be felt, so it's bloody awful. A lack of variety in level aesthetics is unprecedented for this franchise. It's a huge shame. And I know I'm not alone here. I know that plenty of fans out there couldn't stand these tunnels, but at least most of them had some type of preparation for this when they read the online reviews explaining the tunnels. In late 2005, 14-year-old me didn't even know that reviews existed. So I had no preparation for this. I went into this game completely blind and my expectations were kicked in the balls.
And it made me feel like a piece of shit!
And all of this is why I've held a grudge against this game for 20 years. It's the first thing I think of when I think of American Wasteland. But even when I got past that initial disappointment and saw the game for what it was, it still didn't click with me. After a year or so of occasionally replaying Wasteland, I just stopped. It's been 18 years since I last played it, and I've forgotten so much about it. It's 20 now, and I'm not 14 anymore. I'm about to turn 34. So I think it's time I revisit it and see if it holds up. So you play as a skater nicknamed
Kensucky.
Kensucky moves to Los Angeles to escape the trials of his hometown.
You're failing in school, you're failing in life. All you care about is that stupid skateboard.
And get inspired by skateboarding culture. He then joins a local skating crew with a massive skate ranch, but it's a little barren. So Kensucky decides to develop the ranch and turn it into the best skate park the world has ever seen. As soon as the game begins, a big red flag appears. You're forced to pick one of these pre-made Kensuckys. After you make your choice, you're stuck with whoever you pick. You can change Kensucky's style, of course, but you can't change his ethnicity or eye color once you pick him. It's annoying. Also, you can't pick to be female in the story mode. And I hope that's not due to the fact that Kensucky kisses a woman at the end. I'll give Neversoft the benefit of the doubt and assume that they weren't homophobic. But still, it sucks either way. Now, outside of the story mode, the character creator does give you the option to make a female skater, but the options are shockingly limited. It's not fun. But once you accept the character limitations, you'll get some solid ideas on the story. The story itself is a combination of the last two games. It has Thug 1's heart and Thug 2's lunacy and chaos. Just like Thug 1, you're playing as an amateur skater who wants to improve their skills and beat competitions. You also find a sense of camaraderie amongst other skaters and join a team. And although the side characters don't get too well developed, they work. Mindy is a solid character, voiced brilliantly by Cree Summers. She also played as Susie from Rugrats and All Grown Up. Love that.
My name's Susie, what's yours? Let me guess. You came here to ride where it all began, where all the legends got started, right? Alva, Mullen, Tony Hawk.
How do you know about those guys?
And Mindy is the reason why the cutscenes have this great art style. You see, the entire story mode is told to us like it's in a comic book. The comic book is called
American Wasteland.
We see Mindy creating the book. We then realize that we're playing Mindy's memories, but embellished. Hence all of the chaos, statues coming to life, and second-degree manslaughter.
I guess this proves that T-Rex was a carnivore.
Oh shit, Mindy, you're a cold bitch.
And that concept is pretty beautiful, and it looks great. This is Thug 1's heart all over. But Thug 2? Well, at least half of the missions involve you causing chaos. The way you develop the skate ranch is by demolishing pieces of scenery, even famous landmarks like the fucking Hollywood sign. Someone with a vehicle then takes the remains back to the skate ranch to be reassembled into something skateable. It's so dope seeing the empty skate ranch get filled in over time. But even cooler, because all of these levels keep on changing the more you demolish them, that means that Neversoft had to develop various versions of all of the levels. That's incredible dedication. Well done to them. The story also has Thug 2's humor at times. I remember that a few years later, after I played the game, I watched Falling Down for the first time. Despite having never watched it before, it felt extremely familiar. A smart-looking man in a white shirt, walking around LA with a screw loose, and then he gets a rocket launcher and blows up a construction site? I then remembered that one mission in Wasteland where you help this nutcase. Ah, and this guy is called Mr. D, a reference to this character named D Fence. I do like these funny little moments. But how does the story mode play? Well, quite well in some ways. I do enjoy the way you get connected to the world around you. You see, you get a load of side quests to complete and earn money.
I'll throw down some cash if you can find a couple gaps.
Why will you need money? Not just to update your look if you wish, but also to progress the story at times.
I'll drive this taco truck through the gate for the right price.
The side quests are embarrassingly easy, even on sick difficulty, but I dig the idea of having to earn money and be careful not to overspend when shopping. I actually had to think about my actions instead of just skating and completing missions. I like that. Speaking of shopping, the store clerks actually comment on how long it's been since you last shopped with them. Shop twice in one day.
You again today? What's up? You were just in here today, right?
Shop 2 days in a row.
I remember you from yesterday.
Wait a week.
Saw you last week, right?
That's actually nuts, especially for a 2005 game. It's totally unnecessary too, but Neversoft put in the work to immerse you. Great attention to detail. I just wish these guys would shut up as I viewed items.
How you liking those pants? What do you think of those pants?
I dig that shirt.
You're gonna like that shirt. That shirt's a good fit for you.
Also, when you purchase a tattoo at the tattoo parlor, you're given the option to go shirtless when you leave. Neversoft knew that players would purchase tattoos to look at them. And instead of forcing you to go to the nearest clothing store and pick the shirtless option, Neversoft cut through all of that and gave you the option right here. It's simple, but it's another great attention to detail. I really appreciate it. The other thing I appreciate about the stores is how they upgrade your stats. You have to go to the skate shops, look at their signs with new challenges, and agree to complete them. So if you want Kentucky to get better at skating, you have to seek these challenges out in your own time. Every in-game 24 hours, the challenges change. And if you don't like waiting, you can find these spots around the levels to sleep and speed up time. I just dig the idea of having to participate in this world and make plans outside of the missions. It's cool. There is a big downside to these challenges, but I'll talk about that later. Either way, for the most part, I think this is a very immersive way of improving your stats. I dig it. Now, speaking of getting better at skating, you spend a lot of the story mode not being able to perform basic tricks. You unlock them as Kentucky learns them. And although fine for newcomers, this fucked off an untold amount of veterans, spending ages being taught shit they had known for years. Of course that annoyed the fans, and I get it. But surprisingly, I found this immersive too. Kentucky is a noob, not a pro. So I actually felt like I was in his shoes. I was playing like a noob. I get the hatred for this, but I actually enjoyed feeling like the main character. It also felt rewarding whenever I unlocked a new trick, and when you do unlock them all, oh, it's so worth it, baby. I love most of the new trick features. Despite forgetting most of this game, I never forgot the control scheme for the new tricks. They're so addictive. The first trick is one that I had wanted ever since Underground 1. I always thought it was odd how you could be completely still and then grind a rail with momentum automatically. I always wanted to just grind on a rail without moving. Thanks to the new stall feature, I could. And I loved it. It was so cathartic. I know it's simple, it doesn't look like much at all, but Jesus Christ, it feels great. Hopping from one rail to the other is one of the most addictive things about this game. Yes, it's weird how you always start with a quick bit of momentum and then just stop on the spot, but who cares? I got my wish. Stalling is jiggy. I love it. The next cool thing is the parkour system. It's not deep, but it does complement the skating very well. Running up a wall and backflipping into a stall, or nata spin. It's one of the most satisfying things I've ever done in a Tony Hawk game. And to fit with the new parkour system, Neversoft made the running feel so much looser than ever before. Turning corners and hopping over obstacles just feels right. You can also drop your board now to focus entirely on the parkour. You can't exactly rack up a combo by doing this, but it's still nice that you can just forget the board and hop all over the place, run into the skateboard on the floor to start a new combo and style, start a new collection of skateboards, or keep the wood chipper busy. I don't like the double jump. Defying gravity like this just feels a bit too weird for me, and the Wall-E feature is missing now. That was a very handy feature back in the day, but that's entirely gone now. Still, the parkour mostly feels great. The Burt slide is straight from the Z-Boys. A new flat ground trick that's not a manual? Give me some of this. The boned ollie is a simple way of lasting longer in the air. Fun stuff. And you can perform tails now. Kind of useless, but fun to have the option, I guess. And you also get updated versions of older tricks. In Thug 1, you could wall plant. In Thug 2, the wall plant was replaced with the sticker slap. Now, you can do both.
Thug 1 had wall plants, but Thug 2 had the sticker slap.
Meta! You could now double flip and roll as you perform grab tricks. Awesome. The acid drops were cool, but now you can perform bank drops. So solid. And I was never a massive fan of the nata spin, but I like the new variations of it now. This is good shit. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows. I was never a fan of the spray painting in Thug 2, so the fact you can tag the floors now means nothing to me. You also have this new ability to hit people with your board. It's so stupid. There's no combat system in this game. Why'd you get points for it? I don't know. Whatever. Still, the new tricks are mostly very welcome, and the same goes for the BMXs. The BMXs are genuinely solid. They're more than just another vehicle gimmick. They have a fair amount of tricks for you to pull off, and they control very differently to the skateboards. A load of the tricks are assigned to the right analog stick, and it just feels right. You need to play it to understand. For some reason, I don't know why, but I find it so satisfying to do the X up trick and just leave my arms crossed like that as I ride. No idea why, I just like it. The BMXs work well, that's it. The problem is, the BMXs are hardly ever used in the story. It's a bit of a shame because I do like them. I like them so much that I feel Neversoft should have really stuck with these BMXs and kept developing them in the sequels. But sadly, as of 2025, these were the last vehicles to ever be incorporated in a Tony Hawk game. I know vehicles aren't needed for this franchise, but damn, the BMXs were fun and had a lot of potential. Big shame. So, after forgetting so much of these details, returning to Wasteland after 18 odd years was a pleasant surprise. A lot of these features are still engaging and have aged quite well for me. So have I managed to finally find a great game here? Oh my god, fuck no. The missions, levels, and overall replayability just tank this game. So the missions are quite fun in the oil rig level. They involve some crazy big jumps and stunts, plus feeding a shark is quite fun. But the rest of the missions mostly bore me to tears. I mean, this turret gun? Fuck you. You also face numerous story roadblocks where you're forced to create a graffiti tag or skate trick. I just rushed through these parts because I never enjoyed these aspects. I appreciate how we can create grind and manual tricks now, but I just don't like it, nor being forced to create things. But the worst part is the challenge. It's all over the place. Just like the side quests, most of the story missions are painfully easy, even on sick difficulty. They start you off right in front of your goal, and your hand is always held because these signs tell you exactly what to do. Honestly, you can beat most of these missions in mere seconds. Now, you do get some challenging missions, but they're challenging for stupid reasons. See, one of the first missions pits you up against this rival skater. You have to get a higher score than him, and damn, he whipped my ass. His score just skyrocketed. It was so hard to top him. But after him, the enemies became weaker. I thought that was bloody odd, until I replayed the story mode and realized that this first rival wasn't hard at all. His score only gets high when your score gets high. If you don't skate, his score stays low. He's programmed to respond to your personal skill level, and I find that ridiculous. Now, remember when I said that there was a downside to the way you upgrade your stats? Well, here it is. There's this mission where you have to air across the street and land on the ramps. It's actually quite challenging, and I like it. The problem is, you literally cannot beat this mission if you don't do the skate shop challenges and upgrade your stats. Now, that idea sounds fair, but nothing in this game tells you this. So if you're a newcomer who hasn't done the side challenges yet, and you don't fully understand the rules, you'll just get stuck here. It's so strange how most of these missions overly cradle you, but then this one comes along and kicks you in the ass so viciously, and it leaves it up to you to work out why. The story mode is just a bit of a mess. And add to that, the jokes in the story mode mostly do not land for me. With the game's engine and animations, the jokes just come across as awkward and robotic. It was charming in the earlier games, but here...
I got a bet going with this bum here. He has to suck one of my nuclear burrito farts. Incoming!
Ouch. And sadly, the game outside of the missions isn't too fun either, thanks to the levels. In my Thug 2 review, I criticized most of its levels for just being okay, but I'd take them over most of these levels any day. After not playing this game for 18 years, I could only remember 2 levels clearly, Hollywood and East LA. After finally replaying this game, I worked out why. They were the only story levels out of the 9 that I chose to replay. Hollywood has some nice space to it and some varied little spots, and East LA has some great lines. They're good. The rest of the levels mostly bore me to tears. They don't have interesting lines, they're all surface level, and they don't have much life either. Even in the levels I enjoy, you won't find much traffic or pedestrians. I know that's just cosmetic, but it does make the levels feel kind of lonely.
My name is Robert Neville. I'm a survivor living in New York City.
They also don't have much character to them either. The skate ranch is unique, but it's also a cramped arbitrary clusterfuck. And the oil rig has some nice jumps, but it's still a big, ugly, vertical steel turd. It's just not that fun to explore this version of LA. Also, in my Thug 2 review, I said that sketching vehicles in Thug 1 was great, but sucked in Thug 2. Well, in Wasteland, it's worse. Sketching vehicles used to be a great way to get some speed, but here, the vehicles don't often speed up when you sketch them. Literally, just running is quicker than sketching. It's awful. Downtown is the only place where the cars actually speed up when you sketch them. But it never lasts long, because the cars just stop moving once they get a certain distance away from you. So when you sketch, it won't take long for this to happen. What the fuck? So no wonder I don't remember much about these levels. I barely played them back in the day. I didn't want to. However, on my latest playthrough, returning to the Van skate park was a nice discovery. I had no recollection of it, and I gotta say, it's a really well structured skate park. It's got some nice size to it, some really cool lines. It's one of the best skate parks I've ever seen in a Tony Hawk game. This is solid. I now like 3 story levels. But the next level I have absolutely no recollection of. The casino level. It's boring and empty. I rushed out of here, and I'm guessing that my 14-year-old self did the same thing too, hence why I can't remember it. Yikes. I now know that the casino level was taken from Thug 2 Remix for the PlayStation Portable. That game was a remake of Thug 2 but with some original levels. Las Vegas was one of them, so Neversoft decided to take that level, rename it Casino, and put it in Wasteland. And if you like that, cool, but for me, it's the worst level in the whole game. After the casino, you get a truly lame police chase, and then the story abruptly ends. And that's it. So now that the story is over, what's left to do? Well, unlike prior Tony Hawk games, you don't unlock any new levels after you beat the main campaign. You do unlock some new skaters, but they don't do a bloody thing for me. My beloved goal creator had been scrapped, so 14-year-old me was quite bummed out. I never liked creating my own parks, and even the people who did like that hated this create a park mode, because it didn't add much new at all. And I was never able to play online, so my last bit of hope was the classic mode. Thug 2 introduced the classic mode, and it was mostly a blast, so I was happy to see it return here. This classic mode has a great start. I never played the co-op mode, but the concept sounds great. Unlike Thug 2, this classic mode does not rehash the story mode's levels, and returning to Minneapolis and the mall, always good stuff. And I guess the Santa Cruz level from Thug 2 Remix is okay, and that's it. I hate the other 3 levels, including the final original level called The Ruins. It's just boring to me. And yes, I said the other 3 levels because this classic mode only has 6 levels. That is fucking dire, considering that Thug 2's classic mode had 14. Yes, about half of them were recycled from the story mode, but at least the classic levels it used were, well, classic. Most of these levels are not. I have no clue why they used these levels instead of better ones from the older games. I don't know. Fuck me, this classic mode hurt. When I finished the classic mode on my latest playthrough, I then remembered why I felt so frustrated after beating it at 14. I was playing it to try and find life in something that was dead. My reward for plowing through a load of dull missions that constantly babied me was a bunch of levels I mostly disliked, and there was nothing for me to do. The new tricks were very addictive, so I did keep on replaying the game every now and again, just to use them. But revisiting the few levels I enjoyed over and over again gave me a headache. I got so bored, so I quit the game. And I still feel like quitting now.
Man, that sucks!
So, in the end, the question I have to ask is, was my 20-year-long grudge against American Wasteland warranted? In my opinion, fuck yes. And that's even after removing my initial disappointment after being duped by the marketing. There are some decent levels, some cool immersive details, the new tricks are mostly great, and I really appreciate the BMXs. These pluses give the game some staying power, and I do believe they've helped it age quite well in some areas. But that's not enough to make me like it overall. The story mode is full of terrible missions, the fake open world sucks, the levels are mostly dull, and damn, there's not much here to keep me going after the lame story mode. But with that being said, I do understand why American Wasteland has a passionate fanbase. It is quite different. Whereas the prior game, Thug 2, felt more like DLC for Thug 1 than its own game, Wasteland is very much its own game, and it stands on its own feet. But I don't like the direction those feet walk in. I'm gonna give Tony Hawk's American Wasteland a 5 out of 10. Now, before I end this video, I want to talk about the Tony Hawk franchise as a whole and elaborate on something I said at the end of my Thug 2 review last year. I said that the Tony Hawk franchise started declining with Thug 2, and that led to the death of the Neversoft Tony Hawk franchise. I promised I'd elaborate on that in my American Wasteland review, so here I am keeping my promise. Neversoft released these games once a year for almost a decade. That incredible dedication spanned over 3 generations of consoles, but that impressive work ethic also doomed their franchise. By releasing these games once a year for almost a decade, Neversoft put themselves, their games, and their fans in a lose-lose situation. The games could either keep on doing variations of the same thing until it became oversaturated and stale, or try something entirely new and alienate the fanbase. Well, thanks to Neversoft's work ethic, the Tony Hawk franchise did both. In the beginning, releasing these games once a year made sense because there were plenty of ways to develop the trick system. And they did, each year. The games got fresher and fresher, and by the 5th year, they peaked. Flaws aside, Underground 1 was the most accessible Tony Hawk game ever. The trick system was perfect, the new story mode humanized the experience, the levels were mostly brilliant, and the creator modes were amazing. And you can't improve upon all of that in just one fucking year. So after the success of Thug 1, Neversoft should have taken a break and given themselves time to think about how to make a truly worthy successor to their masterpiece. But they didn't. A year later, we got Thug 2. And I'm a fan of Thug 2, but you could clearly see that Neversoft were running out of ideas. It's just Thug 1, but with a shorter story, smaller levels, and new tricks that weren't that impressive. Even the classic mode proved that they ran out of ideas. It's a mode based on nostalgia, the past, because they struggled to work out what to do next. And that wasn't due to a lack of talent or passion, obviously. That was due to a lack of time. They needed to take a break, but again, they didn't. A year later, we got American Wasteland. And not only was it easily the most flawed game in the franchise at the time, it also didn't freshen up what was becoming stale. It couldn't even rely on nostalgia to keep itself afloat. The classic mode sucked. And of course, when you factor in that plenty of fans, like myself, believed that this game was going to be something new and immersive, a massive big open world, oh, it hurt twice as bad. And even though the next two games, Project 8 and Proving Ground, definitely pushed things forward with their new next-gen engines and open worlds, they still didn't do enough to keep the formula fresh. And that's evident because the first Skate game came out around the same time as Proving Ground, and it almost instantly outsold Proving Ground. How did a new skating game outsell the 9th entry in a successful, established franchise? Because the fans had grown sick of it. The formula got stale, and Neversoft retired from the franchise in 2007 after Proving Ground. Robomodo took over and actually tried new things, and no one liked them. Tony Hawk's Ride and Tony Hawk's Shred used a motion-controlled skateboard. Great concept, but it controlled terribly, and the games bombed hard. Trying new things didn't work, so Robomodo relied on nostalgia with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater HD and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5, and they didn't do so well either. Meh. But thankfully, we eventually got the 2020 remake of Pro Skater 1 and 2. This nostalgia did not feel cheap. Real fun stuff, so at least this mess did have a happy ending. But either way, this chaos was still the effect of forcing these games out once a year, and it's such a pity. But if these issues began with Thug 2, then why didn't I say all of this at the end of my Thug 2 review, instead of this American Wasteland review? Two reasons. One, the problems may have begun with Thug 2, but that game was still really good. In my opinion, American Wasteland was the first game to be affected badly by Neversoft releasing these games annually. And two, American Wasteland was the first time it all affected me. I could see that we would only get variations of the same thing over and over again, so I lost interest in the subsequent games. I did play Project 8 a few years later, but that was only because my best friend was kind enough to give me his copy. I tried it out and I don't really remember much about it. It actually did have a real open world, but it still wasn't that fun. It was just a load of levels that felt inorganically connected. It didn't feel like a real place. And even though the Nail the Trick feature was one of the best things the Tony Hawk games ever did, that still wasn't enough to make me like Project 8 much, or have faith in the future. I had no interest in playing Proving Ground, so I quit the franchise and spent over a decade watching it burn down from a distance. But I wasn't too hurt because I had a different set of virtual worlds to keep me entertained. In late 2011, I played Skate 2 for the first time and it gave me exactly what I had always wanted. One big level that actually felt like a real place. It gave me sensory overload, man. What a masterpiece. I have to review that game somewhere down the road. My dream came true. It's just a shame it didn't come from the name Tony Hawk. But my dream still came true, so I'm not complaining. Plus, I did enjoy the 2020 remake of Pro Skater 1 and 2, so I'm now hoping for a remake of 3 and 4 one day, maybe even the Thug games. So until those games, or something else great comes from the name Tony Hawk, this is the end of me reviewing these Tony Hawk games. I don't have a real relationship with any of the other games, so I would not be reviewing the subsequent games for their 20th anniversaries. My Tony Hawk video stopped for now. I'm done.
A great sadness has fallen over me as our journey has come to an end.
But as bitter as this end may sound, trust me, I'm still extremely grateful for the journey I've had with these Tony Hawk games. I was only really a fan for 2 years, from Thug 1 to Thug 2, but during those 2 years, so much happened to me thanks to those games. At the end of my Thug 1 review, I explained how Thug 1's goal creator not only softened the blows of child abuse, but also helped me discover my creative side when I was 12. and now, as a creative man, that is extremely important to me. Thug 1 and Thug 2 were not just games to me, they were also a big part of my creative journey. I still apply the lessons I learned from them to my work now. I owe them, and Neversoft, a lot. And I think about that every single day. Whenever I reflect upon my childhood, whenever I'm being creative, Thug 1 always pops into my head. But I'm especially reminded whenever I walk by my shelves. What do I mean by that? Well, let me end this video on a cheesy, nerdy, trivial note that does have strong meaning to me. Get ready. I collect Funko Pops. Yes, I'm one of those losers. But I only collect the ones that are based on media that I either grew up with or have inspired me creatively. I have Pokemon because I grew up with it. I have Jigsaw here because Saw 1 is one of my favorite horror films, and it was made by young first-time filmmakers. Very inspiring to me. Why do I have Dory from Finding Nemo, Helga from Hey Arnold, Bender from Futurama, Audrey 2 from Little Shop of Horrors, and the Genie from Aladdin? Because I am a voice actor, and those characters and vocal performances have influenced me to no end. Just incredible. Why do I have Hedwig and the Beast from Split? Because I adore M. Night Shyamalan and his Unbreakable trilogy. The Unbreakable trilogy inspired me to quit music and focus more on my passion for movies and video games. Hence this channel. I literally owe this YouTube channel and anything I do involving storytelling to the Unbreakable trilogy. How could I not have Split up here? But why do I have Tony Hawk when I am not a skater? Because back in 2003, his game, Tony Hawk's Underground, helped start me off on my creative journey. I'm reminded of that every time I walk by these shelves. As childish as that is for a near 34-year-old man to say, it's true. Those days still mean the world to me, and they always will. And obviously, American Wasteland did not complement that journey. It annoyed me so much that it caused me to quit. But do you think that any of Wasteland's flaws could ever be powerful enough to affect my gratitude for the journey I've had with these games? Absolutely not. How could any of Neversoft's mistakes matter when compared to all of the joy they brought us? They gave skaters a game franchise that captured their culture. They gave outsiders a gateway to that culture. They gave us some of the best soundtracks in gaming history, and they inspired certain nerds like myself to be creative. These games were more than games to us. They were, and always will be, big parts of our lives, and I will always be grateful to Neversoft for that. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay jiggy, the badger appreciates you.